Don't get me wrong, the UK has some really odd place names, but Australia is on another level.
So you're walking along a road and you come across a cave. It definitely wasn't there the last time you were here.
Sorry, there is a place called, well, it wasn't there last year cave. Surely not! My mind is blown.
Or you're trying to find this dam your friend has been telling you all about. But where is it?
No.
Oh, right, that explains it.
It's almost so literal. Like, someone went there before, went back to wherever they live, and they're telling their mates about this place. And they can't remember where it is. And so they call it Hard to Find Dam. What the hell? No way.
So, what's in a name? You wouldn't think twice about the names of most places. Some are just a bit harder to pronounce, like Mamungu Kumpurankuchanya Hill.
To be fair, Wales has got one like this. And it's funny because I think the traffic and weather presenters on the news do their best to learn how to pronounce this Welsh name. I can't even tell you what it is, but there's lots of L's and W's. And it's always funny to listen to them pronounce it, and they do their best to get it right. That is unbelievable. Mamunkukumpurankuchanya Hill. That is hard.
Which in Pidindala roughly translates to place where the evil spirit urinates. And others might cause you to raise an eyebrow. But the names we give to places, even the seemingly weird ones, convey their significance and history and, more often than not, a sense of identity. The first non-Indigenous names came from early marine explorers. Sailing south from Indonesia, Dutchman Willem Jansson gave Queensland many names. Some that still survive today include the Gulf of Carpentaria and Cape Kiawea, where he turned again back to Indonesia. After further...
But that doesn't sound... So when you actually listen to that, Cape Kiawea, it doesn't sound like completely bonkers, does it? I think that sounds quite natural. It's only when you find out what the actual English translation is that you think, okay. But if you just have Cape Kiawea, it's fine.
After further exploration from fellow countrymen, the Dutch named this new land New Holland. Then came the English. In 1770, on his first Pacific voyage, Captain James Cook assigned more names to the East Coast. Some were straightforward, some honoured various high-ranking people, and some reflected the ship's personal trials.
Point danger.
Another English explorer, Matthew Flinders, came along a few years later and circumnavigated the country. Flinders referred to the whole country by the name Europeans had been using for centuries for a hypothetical continent to the south, Terra Australis Incognita.
So I did a video on this, and basically Australia is derived from the southern lands. If you don't know, go watch that video.
But not really unknown anymore. His preference, though, was a shortened version, Australia. And after formal European settlement, groups of surveyors came through, giving names to rivers and mountains and other landmarks. Like Captain Cook did, a lot of places were named after people. Lake Eyre was named after the explorer Edward John Eyre, who was the first person to lay eyes on it. And most of our capital cities are named after people. Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Darwin and Hobart.
Well, I didn't specifically know. I didn't know that those places were named after people. That's interesting. Sydney. Thomas Townsend, 1st Viscount Sydney. Sir Thomas Brisbane. I didn't know they were actually specifically named after people. I know that plenty of places are named after people. Like, actually, I knew Darwin was named after Charles Darwin, but I didn't know about the others.
But, well, some names are just strange. If you've got nowhere else to go, well, you could try nowhere else. Speaking of Tassie, if your postcode is 7112, you're living in Eggs and Bacon Bay in Tasmania.
I also did funny place names in Tasmania because Tasmania, for a small place, it's not that small. It's like the size of the United Kingdom, isn't it? Or at least England. It's got a lot of very strange names. And Eggs and Bacon Bay is bonkers. It is bonkers, whether there's a reason behind it or not.
While naming places after breakfast foods might seem an interesting choice, it's actually named after these flowers found in the area. On the New South...
Yeah, but you got to question, why were the flowers named after eggs and bacon, right? Surely that's what you got to be thinking.
Wales coast, north of Newcastle, you'll find Yes I Know Rock. Yes, a rock called Yes I Know. Said to have been named after the last words of a fisherman who was washed from said rock.
Madness.
Orange and banana don't grow either of those fruits. One was named after the Prince of Orange, and one was named after a bull. When two explorers failed to glimpse the ocean from a summit of the Great Dividing Range, they dubbed the poor mountain they were standing on Mount Disappointment. Victoria also has a Mount Terrible, Mount Despair, and Mount Hopeless, so...
Considering Australia is meant to be a wonderful place and lots of sun, happy people, Mount Disappointment, Mount Terrible, Mount Despair, and Mount Hopeless. It seems very contrasting to what you would hope from Australia, right?
Make of that what you will. And if you've ever wanted to go to the other side of the moon, you can. All it takes is a ticket to WA.
No.
Then there's a name...
How is there a place called Other Side of the Moon? What is going on? Like, as I said the UK has weird names, like Knobbly Crook and things like that, which is quite funny. But these are complete, like, other side of the moon. What? It doesn't make sense. I'm sure there's a meaning behind it, but why would you name a place that?
Names that seem rude, but really are quite innocent. Off the coast of WA, you'll find Intercourse Island. No, not that type of intercourse. Captain Philip Parker King had what must have been a great chat with some native islanders.
That's so funny.
Some other strangely named islands include Shag Island and Booby Island, but...
I love these ones. As I said, the ones that are so childish, but they're so childish, but so funny. It's so funny. It's like saying boobs. That's funny, isn't it, right?
It's not really that strange at all. They're named after the birds which frequent them.
I was going to say, probably the birds.
Shags and boobies. It may seem like we're a country of knobs, but only if you mean knob as in a rounded hill or mountain. Then yes, for sure we're full of knobs.
We got a lot of knobs.
Down south in the Bass Strait, you'll find Prickly Bottom and a whole lot of other bottoms. Again, not what you're thinking. A bottom is a low-lying land adjacent to a river. Several of these names are a marker of white European settlement, but a lot of the names we still use today can be traced back to their Indigenous origins.
Our naming practices are very often reflective of really, really practical concerns, practical information. So a name could describe the shape of something, or the particular people who live there, or the animals or plants or activities that might go on. So for example, the city that I'm in now, Canberra, is derived from a Ngunnawal word, Canberry, which was meeting place. Noosa is from a Kabi word, which means shady place.
See, I don't think those names are odd if you think of the Indigenous people that were there in Australia. So it reflects their sort of languages, doesn't it? However, I still love the names such as Wollongong. I think it's so funny. And Billabong. It's just funny to say.
Geelong is drawn from a Wathaurong word, which is the word for tongue, because that's the shape of the bay.
Kununurra means big water in the local Mirrawong language. Coogee comes from Kuja, meaning place of stinking seaweed. The name for the Yarra River came from surveyor John Holdawedge. A Wathaurong speaker, after being asked what the cascading waters were called, simply said yana yana, meaning it flows. But there's also some more serious history behind some names.
It's important for us not to hide from our history, all of it. It's important for us not to hide from our dark history, particularly. People ask themselves, well, why is that street called Boundary Street? And come to understand that that was the boundary beyond which Aboriginal people were not permitted to pass.
Yeah, Brisbane has that dark history, doesn't it? Brisbane really has a dark history. And that's interesting to know that road, Boundary Street, Boundary Road, whatever, is because that's where they weren't allowed to cross. And he's right, this guy is correct. This has gone on a different bit of a turn, hasn't it? Talking about place names, weird and wonderful place names, talking about dark history. But it's important because a lot of things are named after that, like the guy's saying. And you have to look back and remember these things to make sure you learn from them, don't you? That's interesting.
They become really important points of learning for people.
So can we still change the names of places? Yes, There are some strict guidelines in place, but essentially any community member can submit suggestions for name changes, or even to name a geographic feature which doesn't have an official name yet. In the last few decades, there's been a push to recognise more Indigenous names around the country by giving places dual names. It's a way to recognise their validity.
Hang on. Just look at that view. What a view. Mount Wellington or Kunani? What a view. I assume that's a viewing gallery type situation going on there. But wow. That is just stunning, right?
And acknowledge their importance. This big rock is known as Uluru Ayers Rock. And Lake Eyre is officially known as Katithunda Lake Eyre.
With a bit of investigation, they will find out something wonderful and enriching about the place that they live, just simply by asking questions about Indigenous languages. So it's a really important thing for people to do.
So, what's in a name? Turns out, quite a lot.
I think you're very lucky, actually, and I do think it is lucky, in a sense that Australia has two very contrasting mixes of communities or history. So you have the Indigenous that had their own languages, had their own, their own place names, but then you've got the contrast of very white names, named after white people, and for me it's very strange, without being derogatory, very odd to have names such as Melbourne, Sydney, and Wollongong, Geelong. I'm trying to think of others now, I can't. But my point is they're very contrasting names for different places. And I think it's brilliant. And I think it's something to be happy about and enjoy the fact that you've got that different contrast in place names. I think it's brilliant. And as I said, all places have weird names, right? UK has weird names. You've taken some of our weird names, should I say? Or should I say they were placed upon you? And it's just so funny. And actually sometimes, like the birds, the booby, I think you've just got to laugh because it's funny, right? It's funny. In this time, it is this era, it is funny. I know it is a bird, but it's like tits. A bird, all right? A bird, the bird, tits. That is so funny, right? We've just got to laugh at these things and enjoy them and embrace them and yeah, find the history in them as well. An interesting video, another one from ABC. I'm enjoying these. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.